financing supported, oh, it's being recorded. Financing supported solar panel installations, electric vehicle manufacturing, energy efficient real estate, and more. Commitments like these are not just critical for planet and ecosystems today, but they enable us to envision a more sustainable future for our communities. And when I think about what sustainability means to me, it's just that collective action and commitments that not only protect our future, but build a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable one. So again, I'm really glad to be here this morning, and I'm looking forward to the discussion about sustainability and what it means to our local manufacturing industry. So with that, I'll pass it off to Phil so we can get started.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy your personal definition of sustainability, and I think it's a great note for us to open up on. I'm really interested to hear from Sharon, Sean, and Chris what their personal definitions of sustainability are. I think before that, it would be great just to get the introductions to each of them. So if we could go in that order, Sharon, Sean, and then Chris, if you could just introduce yourselves to our audience here and let them know a little bit about yourself, the company, where you're located in San Jose, and what your team looks like. That would be great. Thanks.
Well, that's a lot. So I'm Peak Technology Enterprises. I am right where 237 and 85 meet. No, wait, right where 101 and 85 meet. And I've had my business going into my 23rd year. It's fabrication, machining, assembly, things like that, mostly for the medical and semiconductor segments. What else? I have 56 employees. My culture is great. I have wonderful people working here, and I love being in San Jose.
Very good.
Take it away, Sean.
Thank you. Nice speaking with you again, Sharon. So I'm Sean Sharif. As Phil mentioned, I'm the head of manufacturing operations at Saku Corporation. Saku Corporation is located in South San Jose, right off of Blossom Hill and 101. And we currently have roughly 69, actually, I think just yesterday we hit our 69th employee, and we're growing like weeds. We started the year with around just under 20, and we're at 69 already, and we're expecting to be close to 100 by end of the year.
Fantastic.
That's exciting stuff. Chris, would love to have your introduction. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks for those who have joined today. Thanks to the sponsors. Thanks, Phil, for putting this together. It's great. Should be a great conversation. So my name's Chris Demers. I lead sustainability at Supermicrocomputer. Supermicrocomputer is a publicly traded company based here in San Jose, headquartered here in San Jose, founded in 1993, went public in, I think, about 2008. Has close to 3,000 employees here in San Jose. And we manufacture computer servers and storage equipment, things that go inside of data centers. And we also sell some of the components as well that go into the servers on their own. We are a company that has always been headquartered here. We continue manufacturing here, and we have plans to continue to do that sustainably into the future.
Thank you, Chris. One of the things when I think about sustainability, a phrase that pops into my head is that you should think globally and act locally. And I think that really perfectly describes what you're up to at Supermicro. What I'd love to do is ask a question now to the whole panel, and if you can just take it in whatever order you choose. What is your personal definition of sustainability, and what does sustainability mean to your company? Maybe Chris, you'd like to start us off?
Sure, no problem. Yeah, so sustainability obviously is a term that has different applications, and even when you're talking about sustainability in terms of like the ESG definition of sustainability, you can have certain variations in definitions. So it's a good question to ask. I always think about it, and I try and implement it in the company in a way that we are trying to do right by way of people and planet. And we are trying to do that by not just reporting, not just doing the basic compliance, but make sustainability and how we are impacting people and planet part of our thought process as a company. What we contemplate, factoring in planning and at different junctures of decision making as a company. To me, when you are getting to that point and improving upon that, that is what I believe is the term sustainability.
Fantastic. Sean, what does sustainability mean to you, and what does sustainability mean to SACU Corp?
Sure. Actually, at a personal level, I actually would like to echo Chris's message there. Honestly, when I think about sustainability, I see it. What can we do as individuals and even organizations or entities to maintain, do what's right for the earth in the long term, right? And that can, as Chris mentioned as well, that can entail many different approaches. But at a personal level, there's a lot of things that you do on a daily basis that has an impact. Everybody knows this, right? This is not uncommon. But what can you do better to maintain the longevity of the earth and allow our future generations to thrive? At a corporate level, considering the fact that SACU Corporation is, we're a 3D printing platform company that makes devices. And the first device that we're actually bringing to market is a solid-state battery technology. And the market for that particular product, from the EV space to the consumer electronics space to even various medical devices and so on, the sustainability aspect of it is a huge driver for the whole market space. In particular, the fact that we generate energy and we do energy storage type devices and products. But at a corporate level, what we like to look at is not just what it takes to be sustainable by using the term sustainability in what we produce. We really look at it in the full ecosystem of the products that we're taking to market, right? And that really entails the whole front end of the supply chain, all the way to our customers' consumption of the products that we produce. So we actually do look at the overall ecosystem. In particular, the fact that the EV market is really driving the need and the effort for sustainable supply chains. So yeah, this is something we actually look at and plan for on a regular basis in the company at SACU.
One thing, Sean, that you mentioned a couple of times that I think, Sharon, you have a really interesting perspective on is this idea of long-term planning and thinking about future generations. Sharon, you're second generation in your company. What does sustainability mean to you, and what's your take on it, and what does it mean at Peak?
Well, I think that I represent more of the smaller company, and I started out as a mom and pop, and for so many years I had that mindset, and that's not what I am now anymore. But it's hard to get out of that mindset, and I think that sustainability to me has always been to grow and survive, which for the planet is pretty much the same thing, right? Grow and survive. And I think that on a large scale, thinking about sustainability for me, I've always been on a small scale, just how do I grow my business? How do I keep it in the future sustained and here for my future employees and generations? I have kids of my employees from way back now working for me. So it really is about growth and survival for me. And I'll tell you, because of this panel, because of you, and the talk we had before, I am totally inspired now, because now I've been doing research on sustainability. Oh my God, there's so much to it, and it's so important, really so important. So yeah, I'm learning. So I'm the question of how do you start, really, I am going to listen to that one.
That's the thing. I think we're all learning, right? And we're all just trying to absorb as much information as we can and figure out how to turn that information into action. One of the things that I wanted to ask about is, Sean, you used the word ecosystem around kind of the whole value chain earlier. There's a lot of different pressures that you might get nowadays from your customers, from your suppliers in the regulatory environment that might push you to start looking at what's my environmental impact, or what are my conditions for taking on a new supplier. Could somebody maybe talk to that? What are the different sort of pressures or influences, and who are they coming from that are driving you to consider sustainability in your business operation?
Sure. Chris, did you want to jump on that, or?
I'm happy to, and knowing a bit now more about Sharon and Sean, your businesses, if it would be understandable that we would have faced more pressure at this point than you guys, given who our customer base is and what they expect of a company like us. So among large publicly traded companies, and not always publicly traded, but multinational companies that operate across this country and across other countries, there really are increasing expectations. Some of those come from compliance, but that's less often. More, it's industry pressure, and it's industry pressure coming from customers. So on any given day, I have 2 or 3 new customers contacting me, existing or new customers contacting me, asking for us to answer a series of questions related to sustainability, or offering certain data related to sustainability that they're in part evaluating us by, and making sure that we have certain kinds of certifications associated with our products, et cetera. So there is real pressure in the marketplace, and I was really just speaking about customers there, but there's also on the investor side a lot of attention and interest of this as well. And so we deal with that daily. We have to justify our sustainability decisions and have to be prepared to report on it in order to be competitive in the electronics marketplace in a multinational corporation setting.
Yeah, well said, Chris. In fact, somewhat similar on my side as well, right? SACU, again, being that we're bringing products to market, especially in the solid state battery technologies. The market space is really driving a lot of the efforts that the suppliers have to implement, right? Again, you're absolutely right. Those pressures are definitely coming from our customers as well. In particular, in the fact that the bulk of the demand on the electronics side moving forward is really going to be on the EV market, right? And a majority of the EV, the electric vehicle manufacturers, that is one of the biggest concerns that they have is sustainability, because it's not just how can you reduce your carbon footprint within your manufacturing operation, but beyond that, once the product is in use, and then once the product achieves its end of life, what do you do with the materials that are used to produce that product? And in the space that we're in, where we're trying to really displace in the solid state lithium battery products are trying to displace the existing lithium ion, because there is, beyond just the manufacturing side and the carbon footprint that you have in the manufacturing process, there's the concern about recyclability and what are you going to do once those batteries need to be extracted from the vehicles. So we do get pressure from our customer base, because they also are looking at a global or the approach from an ecosystem, the full ecosystem, where their supply chain is doing to reduce their carbon footprint. What does it take to minimize that in the manufacturing process of the vehicles? And even the other consumer electronics customers that we have as well, they're looking at their reduction of their carbon footprint in the production of their products. But then once those devices have left, has got to the customer and the consumer, and now that it's reached its end of life, how do you maintain the reduction of the carbon footprint? and that goes into recyclability and so on. So we definitely have the pressure on our side as well from our customers, and hence we push that to our supply chain as well in making decisions on what the proximity is of our manufacturing partners to the actual raw material suppliers, so that we can reduce that transit time, which is a major contributor to your actual carbon footprint, is the transit of raw materials to your facilities, your manufacturing facilities, and then transit to your end customers. So at least at half of that, if you can minimize that by having proximity to your raw material suppliers, that greatly reduces your carbon footprint in your overall process. But then, I mean, in that vein as well, to Chris's point, our investors, we're still a privately held company, but our investors are very adamant on making sure that we have these sustainability initiatives in place and programs in place, so that when we do go to our mass production phase, which we're relatively close to, we actually will be having a positive impact on the earth and our reduction of carbon footprint.
I really don't get any pressure from my customers, but when you consider what it is that, plastic is not necessarily a very sustainable product. And I do a lot of sustainability things in my business without the awareness until this came up, and I started new LED lighting that I'm replacing throughout the building, and I recycle all of my plastic. Because of the type of businesses that are the segments, semiconductor and medical, I can rarely use recycled material, although I do whenever I can, and there's probably only 2 or 3 materials that I really do use that are recycled, and not for those segments. So I think that I think that's probably why I haven't got a lot of pressure from my customers.
One of the things that Sean said again made me think, so I think I heard a lot of language from you, Sean, that sounds like you're doing life cycle analysis. And I was wondering if anybody else has any kind of particular methodologies that they're practicing to measure their footprint, to, figure out what exactly it is as far as, emissions, energy consumption, water consumption, those different elements that go into environmental impact. How do you measure those things?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in there. Measurement is very important, and accurate measurement is increasingly important. There's certain fundamentals that you're trying to measure oftentimes in an operational sense with sustainability: your energy use, your water use, your waste, and your waste diversion, of course. And so we have been measuring those things. And we have been reporting on those, like most other companies of our size do, to third parties. A big one for us every year is reporting to the Carbon Disclosure Project, all of our emissions information. So we are, those are some of the key items that we measure ourselves against, and we set goals, of course, against those, and continuously try and improve upon those year to year.
Very good, Chris. Very good. So actually, I can jump in real quick as well. Again, similar from a manufacturability standpoint, we're actually in the process of building out our pilot line, our initial pilot line for our production processes for our battery products. And in that effort, we actually have done a full measurement, and based on utilization of the equipment, the uptime of the equipment, the various pieces of equipment in the whole process that we have, and done the actual measurements of how much energy would be used and what our consumption is going to be, so that we can have a gauge on when we go into full production mode with our pilot line here in our facility in San Jose, what is going to be our actual energy draw, and actually where can we make those improvements by optimizing the process, so you don't have to run the machine longer than you need to. But in parallel, even how do we get renewable energy sources to feed our requirements here in-house. But yeah, to Chris's point, yeah, we're starting the process by effectively measuring what our usage is going to be. And then ultimately, when we do go into production mode, there will be regular analysis of what the actual manufacturing cycles are and what kind of consumption on the energy side that we have, so that we can figure out how to reduce those in the long term.
And Phil, you had mentioned the life cycle measurement. I'm sorry, I spoke more immediately just about our operational measurements. But yes, we collect data from our suppliers too. And in fact, as part of what I mentioned, our CDP reporting, we estimate our scope 3 emissions as a company, which, again, we're not the only ones who do that. A lot of companies do that. And to do that, you're looking at your life cycle emissions. And how we do it and how other companies do it is we take financial data and location data and transport method data. And we do estimations about our upstream in terms of where our products are coming from and the likely energy intensity and emission with respect to those. And then we look at our own operations, and then we look at our downstream, of course, again, all based on financial data and estimates that we make and estimate our emissions downstream. And that is how we as a company try and keep track of and try and impact the emissions on the life cycle. And if we were to do it product by product, that's how we would do it as well, just breaking it down by individual product though.
So I don't really do any kind of measurement, but I am certainly looking forward to learning from Chris.
Well, Sharon, I did want to ask you, because as you mentioned, you're in a different position because your customers are actually saying, don't use recycled plastic. They have certain other standards that they're holding you to. And so you're in an interesting position there, where for you to be mindful of your environmental impact, maybe it's more about what do you do at your facility. And maybe for you, sustainability isn't just environmental impact. It's also about how do you treat the people that you work with. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, what goes on at your building and the facility. You mentioned, LED lighting and things like that before, but also what about the culture that you're building and the way that you treat your staff so that they can stick around for the long term? As you mentioned, you've got, now second generation, people who are working at Peak. I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, that's the sustainability for me, really, is the growing and surviving. And I am very close to my employees. I was just talking to my daughter yesterday, and we've been hiring so much lately. And there's probably about 8 employees that, one of them I didn't even know worked for me. And that's a very new thing for me. I've always known all my employees. And in the last 2 years with the pandemic, we haven't had the barbecue things with all the families. I haven't had the Christmas deals and the dinners. I haven't had the barbecue monthly that we used to. We stopped all that. So it's kind of taken away my ability to learn about the person more and in their family context. So it's very different now. But to grow and survive here with my employees, really, I want that for them, and it's not that we don't think about sustainability, period, of the planet and everything else, because the things that we do is more about efficiency, right? And making the lives of my employees easier and better, and that they feel valued, right? And that they're making a difference with the segments that we do business for, But I have a great crew of people, absolutely great crew of people, and it's fun here. And when everybody's on the same boat and rowing together, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Sharon, that's an interesting perspective that you have. I mean, the term sustainability is a big buzzword in recent years, right? Of course, the impact is huge, so it needs to be an initiative for everyone. But I really like your perspective on that, on keeping the business afloat, making it profitable, so that it itself is sustained long term for your employees to be able to thrive, right? Your team members to be able to thrive. So a lot of times, corporations, we lose that management loses that perspective when you start thinking about profits and how much more revenue you can increase and so on. But aside from just the immediate environmental impact, but keeping your employees healthy and happy and keeping the business sustained long term so they can thrive. That's a very interesting perspective. I like that.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of people forget that any company is entirely made up of people, right? And we're all different, and that always has to be addressed. But yeah, no, thank you.
Absolutely. That brings me to another question, which I think we've come close to a couple of times already. You each in your businesses have different groups that you have to be accountable to, right? A publicly traded company versus a privately held company, a privately held company that's in a growth mode with investors. How do you find that those pressures, Sean, you were just talking about the focus on profits and increasing revenues can be very intense. How do you balance that with long-term planning and with, longer term strategic thinking?
Sure. So, it's really interesting. Our company, again, being a privately held company, we're still, working on our funding series and so on, so that we can expand our manufacturing capabilities. And we've been successful, fortunately, right? Because the people believe in what we're doing, and there's a need for what we're bringing to market. But yeah, the investment community in particular on our side, being that the markets that we serve for the energy storage devices that we're taking to market, there is a big push from the market to drive sustainability from the product at the product level, and hence the folks that are really investing in these companies and the technologies that these companies are bringing to market, they too want to make sure that you have a plan and you have initiatives and you have programs that will get you to meet the sustainability requirements. As Chris touched on earlier, at a fundamental level, there's the regular compliance requirements that you have to adhere to, right? But beyond that, then it's really become a philosophy for the folks that are, at least in particular in our market, to really drive sustainability initiatives internally. As we go and start looking into expanding our mass production capabilities and in the manufacturing partners in the initial phases of our production process, who we partner with, and then ultimately when we start bringing out our own additive manufacturing platform that will produce our solid state batteries and other devices in various different verticals, the investors that are really buying into this concept, they see the value of what we're developing. Our platform that we're going to be bringing to market in the near future is by itself going to have a huge impact on our carbon footprint in the greenhouse gas emissions of the factories that we will build for ourselves, our own demand, but also be able to provide our platform to the other manufacturers and even strategic customers. By sheer nature of the manufacturing requirements for building the equivalent amount of energy, right? In the battery market, you're talking in terms of energy, right? Our platform will reduce the physical facility footprint by at least 30 to 40%, right? It'll reduce the capital equipment requirements to build the equivalent amount of energy by at least 40 to 50%. If not more. So just by nature of us developing our product, our additive manufacturing platform, that will ultimately be the tool used to make our own batteries. It's going to have an immediate positive impact from a greenhouse gas emissions and carbon footprint standpoint. So our investors see that, right? They see that and they believe what we've demonstrated is, and this is not just all conceptual. We've actually demonstrated this. How the reduction of the manufacturing footprint is going to have such an impact on the environment, and how our products are going to be able to do that. So they actually push as well, so that we can continue our effort, and they're funding us so that we can get to that point, so that we do have a positive impact long term.
I think about long-term planning, and it's so simple because I'm just me, right? And it's, and again, I'm going to go right back to it. My long-term planning is really about growing, sustaining, and surviving, and having all of my employees really have great lives way into the future.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, this panel has really got me thinking. This subject is really, you guys really inspired me to want to implement a program such as this into this company, because when you consider how many small businesses my size there are, a lot. And, by myself, I may not make any kind of huge impact, but all together.
Collectively, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just coming alive to that fact. Because I've been researching. I mean, the environment is in trouble. The planet is in trouble. And it's a reality,
Very true. Very true. Actually, Sharon, you do have a lot of opportunity there, quite honestly. In the fact that you have your own equipment on your own floor, there's a multitude of ways that you can implement the various different changes in your manufacturing flow or process and so on. Even to your point, like you touched on earlier, right? With the changing all your lights to LED lights, right? That in itself is a huge impact, right? At least within the scope and the scale of your facility. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that as long as people are willing and they buy into the concept and they're willing to make the changes, that initial upfront investment, it may not necessarily be financial investment, and on the other hand, it may, but you make that initial investment, long term, there's a lot of opportunities to be able to get into that mode of environmental impact.
Well, I think that way. I just didn't define it that way.
Very, very good point.
We're going to work cells now, right?
Sure.
And we have 5S already. We do the Gemba walks every Friday, and so all the efficiency stuff that we're doing here, remote. I have most of my office has that choice to work remotely, and they're encouraged to. All these things that we're doing. Electric car for deliveries, and a small one for So I think that I just used it in my head as more efficiency and better for the company, but I haven't thought about it in terms of the world. Yeah. So it's a different mindset that I'm changing now.
That's great, Sharon. And it's all progress is incremental, and all progress together, of course, makes the difference. And it's big companies, it's small companies, to accomplish the task of keeping this planet habitable, keeping it a good place for companies, a prosperous place for people. We all have to sort of have these actions. And in terms of our planning, as a company that is in the electronic space and is a little bit, more mature, really the expectation for us is that we're not just taking sustainability and having it be sort of a middle management concept, but really it needs to be up in our leadership ranks. It needs to be part of our strategic planning. And what that means for a company like us is in our yearly management planning process, that it is brought front and center, that the metrics and the improvement of the metrics are part of that, that there is reporting of our sustainability people directly to executive management, and that executive management has responsibility to report that onward to the board, and that there is business made at board time to discuss sustainability issues. So all of those things are sort of necessary to create that sort of management, that planning of sustainability, where it truly is part of the planning cycle of the company. And I just wanted to come in with, if it's okay, Phil, with a few things that I think that we're speaking to manufacturers in the Bay Area, and many of them may be small, medium enterprises, and a lot of this stuff sounds great, but sort of what can we do? And if we sort of break it down to those fundamentals, really, operational sustainability and product sustainability. Within operational sustainability, three really key things again are your energy use, your water use, and what you do with your waste, of course. And every company here in the Bay Area should be aware that you may need to use grid energy. You may not be in a position to do big distributed generation kind of power systems for your own company. But nonetheless, using the grid, you can select to opt into programs like the Community Choice Aggregate Program, which is a program that a lot of localities have, including here, the city of San Jose has one, San Jose Clean Energy, that you can opt into as a company and get a much greener mix of energy supporting your sites, being onloaded onto the grid and supporting your sites. You can elect to become involved in that program and move from PG&E normal power source. You can also possibly be eligible for programs like the Direct Access Program, where you contract directly with an onloader to bring greener energy onto the grid. And again, you are making the decision to do that. You are greening the grid here locally, and you can get credit for that, of course. Water use, even if water is not part of your production cycle, you can be doing things at your manufacturing sites nonetheless to reduce your water use. You can be installing water saving fixtures. You can be reducing your landscaping demands on water, just like you should be thinking about at your house. Those things are very critically important too. And in terms of waste diversion, if you have start first, I guess, start a dialogue with those who are currently disposing of your waste. Find out what they're doing with that waste. Find out, if they have certain kinds of certifications as a waste management company to optimize that waste and to reuse things in that waste, recycle all the things that can be recycled in that waste, really drive into that. And it's another thing you can, obviously do. And then finally, when it comes to product sustainability, learn from your suppliers, ask questions about the materials that are used in those products. Find out about those, find out about how they make decisions on whether to use substances that could be toxic, that could be hazardous. Ask how they think about that, how they pull those kinds of concerns out of the process. Mm-hmm. Those are the kinds of things even medium and small businesses can do to really be moving the ball forward on sustainability.
Very good points, Chris. Very good points. So look, this is something that, to your point, two things really grabbed me there. You mentioned, Chris. One, executive management really buying in. It's not just a buy-in; it really has to be a philosophy of the company, right? And then driving that at the executive level, but then at the operational level as well. As SACU grows, we are actually going to be building our own facility. Aside from our current San Jose building. And one of the key drivers in the location of the facility is accessibility to renewable energies, right? Energy sources. Now, to your point, that could, and in fact, I like the quote. I'm going to start quoting you. You mentioned greener the grid. I like that. We should definitely start thinking that through. And this is one thing that SACU has done in our planning, our longer term planning for the expansion for our manufacturing facility. Whether it's, we have a small scale facility here in the San Jose area, but we will have a much larger scale facility domestically here in the US. But accessibility to renewable energy sources is a key decision-making point in where that's going to be, where that facility is going to be. So yeah, it really becomes a philosophy at the executive level to accept, and that may cost the company a little bit more money to with various locations that we would want to choose from. But nonetheless, it is the right thing to do for the corporation and our longer term goals from a sustainability standpoint. So very, very good points there, Chris.
I think it's very much about education too, because this is what my part of the inspiration I'm getting to start this. Mm-hmm. Really, it's like my culture. It didn't just happen, and it doesn't just sustain. You have to work on it all the time. And all mm-hmm. that is really it's education, it's attention and focus, So yeah, I took all kinds of notes, Chris.
Chris is a wealth of knowledge in this.
Oh, no kidding! I'm going to call you.
I'm always happy to talk and help. And you know, it's a it's a campaign that we're all part of, and
Well said.
we all got to be able to speak and pitch in with each other on this company to company. So always happy to do that.
Very
And
good.
I really do, because I'm a prime example. I really do believe it's so much about education and letting people know, because I mean, look at me, right? Until this, I really didn't understand. And as I've been kind of reading and researching, and it's like, I'm amazed. Holy cow, this is a real issue, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, it was always kind of there, but like I said, you know, focus and attention. Yeah.
You're right.
Chris, thank you so much for sharing those ideas, those resources. It's great to have actionable advice that a business owner or anybody can, you know, take on board and integrate into their thinking. And Sharon, I'd love to know kind of, you said you've been doing some reading, some research. You know, part of the reason that we're having that this is the theme of the discussion is sustainability. Sean, I think you said it earlier, maybe it was Chris, it's become a buzzword. It's been used so much now that do we even know what it means anymore? We hear it over and over again. And part of that is there are a lot of different standards for sustainability. There's a lot of different groups out there that have set different standards that you're meant to measure yourself to. Should you become a B corporation? Should you be ISO 14000? Should you be any other number of certifications that are available? Sharon, as you've been doing some research, what are some of the most interesting resources that you've come across? And Sean and Chris, if you have any other, you know, interesting resources that you'd like to mention, I'd love to hear about those.
Well, I think for me and my readings, I've just been all over the place, you know, Googling and talking to a lot of people, including my management team here, you know, because we are going to implement something. I think the biggest thing that really got me was, and God dang, I can't remember the date they gave, but it wasn't that far into the future, that they said that there would be permanent damage to this planet if we continue the way that we're continuing, you know? And that really got me. That really got me, because there's no reversing. It's very difficult to do that, you know?
Mhm.
So that really, reading that and in more than one place, it was like, oh God, I have to be a part of making this better, right? And talking to a lot of other people so they understand what we're faced with, because it's real.
Yeah, very true, very true.
Mhm.
You know, on our side, you know, again, as I mentioned, you know, part of actually a larger component of the carbon footprint that we have in our process is the transportation of the materials to and from the factory, right? Materials to and then finished product to our customers. But in parallel, the fact that we have products that feeds into the electric vehicle market, one of the major sources of our information and you know, where we can gather info and make decisions off of is from the International Council of Transportation, Clean Transportation, right? The ICCT, and we use the ICCT publications and so on really as a reference and guide for, you know, what's happening in the world right now based on analysis and so on that they've taken, and then you know, how can we utilize that information and plan better for our future and our products. But yeah, it's actually a very, very good source for understanding the impact that just the transportation side has, in particular, since again we make products that go into electric vehicles.
Yeah, I would, you know, there are, sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating, I'll be honest, because there are so many resources and so many orientations on this topic. And I was just, you know, contemplating Phil's question and realizing that, you know, a lot of the things that I kind of deal with and touch on are sort of more appropriate for larger companies that have certain kinds of reporting obligations. But I am going to put at least one offering into the chat here, which is the We Mean Business Coalition, which I think gives a sense of where, you know, corporations are going, particularly with respect to impact on climate, which, all of these issues are critically important when we talk about sustainability. And again, we're talking about how people are doing good by planet and people. And of course, the human element of that, the treatment of workers, the ethical conduct of companies is every bit as important as the environment. But let's face it, on environment, we are in a race. We're in a race to deal with this problem of climate change and how that is going to impact every one of us and our ability to survive and thrive here on the planet. So one of the things that we have done, for example, and I think every company can do this, big or small, is commit themselves to action. And a lot of stuff kind of cascades from there. And what we did, and it's connected to this We Mean Business Coalition, is we signed on with the Science-Based Targets Initiative. And that may sound complex, but it's really not. It's just a vehicle to say, hey, the world is, facing this challenge. Will you commit yourself as a company to this goal of not allowing the climate to warm above 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial time? And again, that sounds sort of looming and large, but there's a lot that kind of cascades from that, because you make that goal and then you realize, well, hey, I need to have objectives and targets as a company now that I've committed myself to meet that goal. And it makes you kind of reflect on, what you do in terms of your energy and your emissions and your opportunities for curbing those. And I think it can help set that stage for companies large or small. So the We Mean Business Coalition is a great place to get information on these sorts of things. And again, the Science-Based Target Initiative, which is mentioned there, is one of the opportunities to commit yourself to a goal and helping address that environmental problem. And there's a lot of things that then cascade from there once you've indicated you intend to meet that goal, to support that goal.
That's fantastic, Chris. Thank you for sharing. We are coming up. We're going to end the event at 11 o'clock, so we'll have some time for questions and answers, but I want to give the panelists first crack at that. So do you have any questions for each other? I'd love to hear, what's come up in this discussion. What would you like to know more about from each other's experiences? Take it away.
Well, I know what I need. This is all pretty new to me, so I am so excited about forming something and really. I already talked to my managers this morning about this. Yeah, and I will be calling on both of you because than I to help put this together for me.
Of course.
Looking forward to that.
Sure. Actually, I have a question for Chris, and in particular, his role is very focused on sustainability for Supermicro, which is great. In our initial conversations, I think you had mentioned that you have one facility here actually 2 facilities in the San Jose area. Is that correct?
We have 2 campuses, yes. We're right off of 880. Brokaw sort of breaks up our 2 campuses. And one of them is a new campus, and it's got more green investments happening on it than the other campus.
So then, and you're doing some level of your manufacturing here, but then the balance of your manufacturing is done offshore or elsewhere in the US, is that correct?
Yeah, so like a lot of other companies involved in electronics, our supply chains, including some of our key contract manufacturers, are Asia-based. But we do final assembly of our products here in San Jose, in some cases in Taiwan, and in some cases in Europe as well.
I see. Yeah. So, and the reason I asked the question because we're, in our as we ramp to mass production mode initially here at SACU, we will have a similar model as well. But again, transportation being a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and carbon footprint. Are you guys considering having close proximity to your supply chain in Asia as well to have that top level assembly? Because those are one of the considerations we're making at SACU, trying to figure out what is the most optimum method. Do we have our facility real close to our supply chain, or is there intermediate stages that we can transfer the materials to build out and still be able to reduce the the carbon emissions in the transportation process. Is that something that helped govern and guide your decision and where those CMs are?
To a degree. Well, I think that we've historically worked with a lot of these CMs, but I think in terms of, I think that there's been some evolution in moving final manufacturing to sites closer to end customers for a number of reasons, and maybe that's more of an electronics thing. But I think at times there's been a heavy focus on by multinationals and sort of offshoring and putting everything in other locations, all facets of manufacturing, including final kind of manufacturing, possibly taking place in Asia or sort of Mexico. But I think companies have found that some of the earlier manufacturing still makes most sense to have in Asia, but some of the final rounds of manufacturing are oftentimes strategic and just as friendly when it comes to an environmental impact to have closer to your customer base and to possibly have multiple of those final locations throughout the globe, depending on where your customers are popping up.
Very good. Yeah, that's actually one of the considerations that we're myself and our team are starting to look into, where our strategic customers are going to be, and where do we have our existing footprint here in the U.S. And we're going to expand upon that as well. But strategically, where in either Asia or Europe do we place subsequent factories such that we can have that close proximity to our end customer requirements, and then hence have a positive impact on our carbon footprint there as well. So yeah, very good. Okay, I just was wondering what that thought process was on your side. Very good.
So do we have any questions from anybody in the audience? Feel free to pop them in the chat or jump right in. We've got a couple more minutes here, so time for a question if anybody has one. I think more people are just opening up tabs to Google all the different stuff that we've talked about. Thank you each so much for your time today, for sharing your experience and your insights. I think this has been a really stimulating discussion. I think me and Sharon are on the same wavelength right now. We're really excited just to keep learning more about all of this. I hope that everybody in the audience has got some of that feeling as well. So again, I just want to say thank you all very much for your participation, your contributions. Thank you for being part of this Silicon Valley Manufacturing Roundtable, which is part of Bay Area Manufacturing Week. Remember to check out bayareamfg.org/manufacturing-week-2021 for the full schedule of events. There are events all day today and tomorrow rounding out Manufacturing Week. Big thanks to our sponsors who made this event possible: Bank of the West, eBay, TMC Financing, and Cal ETP. So that will conclude this edition of the Silicon Valley Manufacturing Roundtable. I enjoyed it. I hope you all did as well. And thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thank you very much, Phil,
Thank you.
Chris, Sharon. It was a pleasure seeing you guys again. And thank you very much for the sponsors for putting this together. Very valuable.
My sentiment too.
Great. I loved it.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Cheers, everybody.